Yo, 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 what is going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and with me, as always, here for episode 9 that he so kindly reminded me of. We got our boy MrSneakyy here for, again, man, our ninth installment of the COD Pod. I'm shocked that we've been going for this long, even though it really is, in retrospect, a very short time. But, Sneak, how we doing, man?
Yeah, dude, I'm doing good. It's been, like I said, quite a while. I think we've both been pretty busy in game and obviously making content. So it's
Just
been,
pumping it out.
yeah, it's been a long month. Let's just say that. So can't wait to see what we're going to talk about today. So I'll pass it back on to you.
Oh yeah, no man, we got some good stuff, and I'm excited because I'm looking forward to some of the varying opinions and just kind of different approaches for kind of how we come into it. And then, of course, if there's anyone out there in the audience that has thoughts, we'll obviously be looking out for anything going on in the chat. May even call some people on too as well, just depending. It's one of the benefits of us kind of doing this impromptu live show. Maybe one of these days we'll be able to get a dedicated day and time that we'll attempt to shoot instead of doing it impromptu. But I kind of like the spontaneity of doing it like this. Maybe that's just me. But today, we got a few things. So we're going to touch on the most recent patch notes, Roots of War 1.0.17, that was announced 2 days ago. We're going to touch on the kind of Facebook sneak peek reveal that they gave with an expanded version from information that was given to us or provided in the patch notes. And then maybe we'll even talk a little bit of like some merged kingdom shot, maybe kind of what's going out there in the sphere of Call of Dragons within some of the kingdoms, maybe some storylines and things that are happening. So it should be a good one, I think. All right. So Sneak, let's start off with, I think, the obvious, which is the patch notes. Now, as we dive in and we take a look at those, and again, I'll, of course, just be kind of showing this off on my own, but what are some things, and I think we like to kind of go along the lines of, what are some things that stuck out to you first, and then we can kind of get to some of the iffies and maybe some of the things that we felt were a little bit more hurdles or opportunities. But give me just, two or three things that you really liked, or even just things that surprised you in the patch notes.
Yeah, so one thing was the new artifact, right? The new Gold Quest artifact was a kind of a shocker to me because we got a new arch artifact which was cool, but if anyone hasn't obviously checked out the Facebook post, you can check it out on there, and it has actually a little bit more information about the artifact, right? And I find it a bit weird that this is now the first artifact that has a passive that states that if Freyga has it equipped, she gets more skill damage. So it's like a tailored bow, because it is obviously her weapon in the lore. So it's a bit weird that she gets the buff and they've not just made it like a general marksman buff, or any marksman troop that uses this gets that skill damage. So it's a bit weird that they've gone in this direction, I think, for the first thing with that artifact. But the whole premise of the artifact I love. I don't know if you've seen it, but I love the artifact, right? It has a CC ability on it, so the archers now have a ranged way to stun lock someone for 3 seconds, or 2 seconds, which is kind of nuts now. So we have the range CC, we have the range 10-second utility artifact lock now in PvP. So it's kind of crazy to see that happening for us. So that's one thing for me that I'm honestly really enjoying in the patch notes, as you can tell so far. So I'll pass on to you. What have you been enjoying so far in the patch 1.017?
There was quite a bit. It's interesting because you mentioned with the artifact having the kind of immobilization that it's providing. I wish they would have given, just to make a brief comment there, I wish they would have given some more details, because bear in mind, right, they put that under the passive column. So it almost makes you wonder, could the first shot, technically, like the very first attack, right, with having that artifact equipped, immediately immobilized, then is it just going to constantly keep proccing? So you technically could have a unit immobilized forever. Will it only go off of once it's actively used? Is it a percentage based, right? If it's like, oh, there's 20% chance that you'll immobilize or something like that. So I wish they gave a little bit more detail there. Because at least how it reads right now, it almost feels super OP. It
Yeah,
feels
it
as though
seems nuts.
it feels as though it is somewhat broken, and it partly I think is just because maybe there's not enough details there. Because it would be very hard I think for anyone to swallow to look at that and say, well, man, that is pretty broken. If I can just attach that and I can just target someone's DPS march as an example, or target someone's or even for example you could target marches that like overextend, like sometimes players will try and poke and they'll like extend out a little bit into like the middle area if you have like two opposing sides or something like that, and they'll do that in a way where maybe they go out there with one or two or three legions, but then they'll fall back the moment that they feel like they're getting pressured. You could use that as a way to trap, right, from the CC effect. So I'm just kind of giving one example, but again, I hope they go into more details than what they've done so far. I think for me, the biggest one that I really like, as I'm kind of going through and looking at everything, it honestly, I feel part of me feels like it'd be easy for me to say that I love the kind of AVA map because I know we were talking about that briefly before we started up. But honestly, I think the thing for me that I'm going to go with here is I think just some more of the quality of life things that we're seeing from the alliances with I think the audit log or the member log is really going to be hopefully a big win. And that's just, I think, for me personally, I think I enjoy more of those types of support and utility type quality of life improvements when it comes to more kind of Alliance Kingdom management tools. So for me, I think that was the one that at least I am really looking forward to. And I hope that it's something they can build off of, right? I mean, it says once you're offline for 3 days, Alliance leaders and officers will receive a notification. This is pretty standard for what happens in Rock. However, I would love for them to expand on it, and I talked about this in my video where I'd love if you're a leader or an officer, and you can just, because they had this in Infinity Kingdom, where you could look at, you could go through the member list top down, and you could see, and there would be a little number. There'd be a number at the bottom of their player card as you're going through the member list, and it would tell you exactly how long they've been offline for. So you didn't have to click on anything. It was just a very easy to see visual. And so I wish they would do something like that here, where they, for example, go like a minute to an hour, right? So it'd be like 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute, right up to an hour. And then once you get to an hour, it goes 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, up to a day. And then from there, it can just go like, one day, maybe it goes like 1 day, 1 hour, 1 day, 2 hours, right? All the way up to maybe 2 or 3 days. And then once you get, and it goes by days. And then, once you get up to a week, it'll go like a week, 1 day, something like that. Like I wish that is what was in there, because I should say, I hope they expand it. I hope they build on it, to also provide some of those other things. Cause in some alliances, you can even see logs such as, when members leave, if they change rank, if they've if they've donated, as an example. Like Infinity Kingdom had like pretty detailed logs that you could see of things, of actions. Almost think of it like a Discord log, right?
Yeah,
like a Discord log. That's kind of what Infinity Kingdom's log was. Like you could really see a lot of things.
Yeah, that's what, at the moment.
But yeah.
At the moment, I've been playing Whiteout Survival, and that I think has something similar to you. What you were saying there, like the amount of actual like knowledge or information you were given in that alliance menu is crazy. Like it does work, like you said. Like you literally, any member as well. This isn't even just specific to officers either. Any member in the alliance, right, can see everyone's power next to their name. And then next to the power, you can literally see 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute, all the way up to 1 hour. Then it goes 1 hour, 2 hour, all the way up to 24 hours. Yeah. And then it'll go 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. And it just continues. So if people have been off for a long amount of time. So it is really good. And like you said with that point, I honestly think it is a really good step in the right direction, right? As an officer, like I've done, obviously, and like being an officer, like the amount of work that is put in is quite tedious, just because of like these quality of life changes aren't in the game, right? And the fact that these quality of life changes are getting put into the game now should honestly relieve a lot of officer like stress, right? Because you don't have to now worry about looking every single time, because you're going to get notified if someone's been AFK too long. Obviously, like there could be other steps that maybe they could push forward, like you said, that would make it a better experience to improve on. But I do enjoy it, I think it's a really good step, the fact that you can say, the member log, and you can see what's going on now in that alliance section and management screen is really cool. So yeah, I'm that's one thing I was gonna almost say, but I thought you might have stolen the alliance once I left it to you.
No, appreciate you. Okay, let's. How about something that you're iffy on? Maybe doesn't have enough information, or you're just thinking to yourself, okay, this could be a little bit of a red flag. And was there even anything in the notes that you felt that way about?
Kind of the PC improvements, just because.
Okay.
It says PC improvements when I'm scrolling down, and I got really excited, and then it's like just two things that really, I'm not gonna lie, for a PC client isn't much of a problem right now. Like improve the display for chat channels, sure, even though they're perfectly fine already. If people are moaning about it, I don't know what's wrong with them. It's literally like using MSN like back in the day. And the fact that they've added now like a pre-download feature, which wasn't on the PC client, which is kind of crazy. So those things I expected, but I was hoping when I saw that PC improvement stage, they were gonna put out the ability to zoom out one more click. Just please give me the ability to zoom out just one or two. Two would be the perfect amount. Just one or two more extra zoom out clicks. Because at the moment, it feels like I forgot what the word is, like the phobia being enclosed.
It's like tunnel visioning.
Yeah, like I forgot what it is. The phobia for being, in an enclosed space. Like that's what it feels like, because you've got such a massive screen, and you're like, yeah, okay, but you know how tiny it is, like what you're actually seeing because of the game proportions and stuff like that. So like the only thing I'm iffy really on at first glance, and what I could remember from the patch notes, is that PC improvement section. I was hoping for a little bit more for the PC guys, so we could actually, get a little bit more benefits. But hopefully they'll push some more PC based stuff out in a couple of weeks or so. Hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's funny because you and I talk about that. I remember I brought this up quite a few times and I talk about this often, even when I'm doing all my PvP videos and just showing off a lot of the fights. Is that it's so apparent, like it almost seems obvious to an extent when you have these big wars. And I remember the video I just put out covering SSS 1-10, where it was what was it? It was 31, 33. What was it? 46. No, sorry. What was it? 32, 34, 46, 48, I think. And I did a video there, and it's just the fight was so massive that you literally had, 5, maybe 600 plus legions on the map that were just, and you had two different areas, two different fighting sections that were happening. And, there's so much happening on the map, and sometimes you can't see. You can't really get the full scope of the battlefield, because sometimes you want to be able to see the flanks that are happening. Is there a second force that's going in somewhere? Are they trying to get to attack from the side or behind? What does the reinforcement rates look like, right, from coming up those roads to the supply lines? Who looks like they're maybe in a better position to engage, or do they need to fall back? And like those are the things. Maybe you're able to see a fight happening, but you can also see the staging area that they're falling back to. And then this is like, oh my god, we can see all of this in one screen, so we're going to most likely see them counter push the moment they fall back to the staging area that they're all grouping at. Like being able to see something like that, to me, would be amazing. So I'm 100% with you on that. I think mine would be probably the thing that really, and again, I don't necessarily know how I don't know if I want to say I feel one way or the other particularly about it, but I can maybe understand why they did it. Was the nerf to Thea, which was basically a big one. I mean, you're going from essentially having a passive flat damage increase on her Legion to now only being able to have it up until the shield breaks off her active. or if another shield is put on her. I think someone had mentioned, gosh, what's the artifact? I talked about this in the video too. I did.
The Visage.
It is Visage. Thank you. Yeah. And so Visage will also proc it, where it'll reactivate it again. And the devs, and I saw something from COD CS that said they confirmed that. So, again, I don't know how broken it was, right, or if it was broken or not, because it wasn't something that I ever really heard that was spoken about. I don't even know what the rates were. I don't even know what the numbers are from the back end, right? Obviously, they would have that information, but I'm curious to know, like, was Thea just being incredibly overused? Were the reports or something showing that maybe the T5 players were taking more advantage of it? Like, we don't know. Like, we don't know any of that data. The only people we could probably refer to would be those that have been fighting a lot, and if they've been seeing, or if I went back and looked through my war footage, right, and I like sat there and like played it, paused it, and I like wrote down every comp that I saw, and then put it on a spreadsheet or something like that. Like, I could do that. That would take a lot of work, but. I don't know. It was interesting. I'm curious. What did you think about that? Because obviously, when I go back, when I look at what it was to what it is now, like, it's night and day. And I would imagine a lot of people liked running it. So I'm curious. Did you run Thea knowing that on purpose? And then did you see other, like, what are your thoughts on that? Just because you've been fighting a lot more than I have.
Yeah. So I was running like Thea Frega for quite a while. It is like redonkulously strong.
Okay.
But I don't think it's gonna be weird because the way that the way it's worded, right? It's like when the shield like disappears. So it's just like, okay, you get your 1k shield, and before the shield would last for X amount of seconds, right? And then it just dissipated. So like now it's like, okay, I could be in combat, and does the shield dissipate quicker? And if it does, technically I'm losing out on damage. But in some scenarios, maybe when, like, if you're a T5 player, right, and you fight in T4, maybe the shield you get is way bigger and it lasts like an extra second or so, right? So you get maybe extra damage. So I think it's one of them things to see. Maybe it varies in the combat you're in. Like, do you get where I'm going with it? Because it's like you could potentially have a combat with your march and it'd be really, really powerful, but then the next combat might be a very even fight, so you're not going to feel the benefit of it compared to obviously having all the tech upgrades against the first guy. But I can see why, because again, like, if you check out any of the other servers as well, like even in server 32, they're using Fear Atheist with Spring Warden's Cavalry. And that match somehow works, and it's absolutely terrifying. Like, it just flies around. It can't use ranged because it's cavalry based. But this fear just appears on top of you with this cavalry. Instant gets 1k rage. Shield goes up, giving you all the damage and stuff you want now. And then that Atheist, for some reason, still fires his skill. So he just bops you for like 9k damage. You're like, yeah, all right, and that's fair, and then they walk away. So like, it is kind of nuts to see Fear, honestly, in a very dominant space, I'd say, for how versatile she's been, right? She's being used everywhere in flying. You can use her, to be fair, out of flying as well. So you could use her as a normal deputy or primary, depending on, if your Fear would be stronger. Maybe you run like a Fear Kanara combo or something like that. 'Cause you can be she's honestly so versatile as a hero. So I think once we get into the patch and we get to see actually what the combat is going to be like, if it's going to be like a really hard nerf, or if it'll be more of, putting her actually in line, right? Because at the moment I do feel like she is a bit more running rampant and like kind of taking over the meta the more and more people are playing. I think you see it more. You see, like, because at first it was just Fear Atheist, but now it's Fear Freygar with Marksman, and now it's Fear, like, say, you can have Fear Freygar with Flying Cavalry, and that match is just, it sounds so weird on paper, but when you watch it work, it is like terrifying. It just gets in and out of combat so quick, it kills you so quick, and it's just like, yeah, Like you don't answer that type of stuff. So I'd be interested to see when it comes live if it just puts her in check or if it's gonna be a hard nerf. But I think I was expecting it. That's why I've never really hard invested into Fear. I've always said if you're gonna play Fear, I think the benefit of her was having a like 5-5-1-1, just having all those raw stats in the two main skills. So it'd be interesting to see what the dynamic of her will be, you know, after the change. So that's my thoughts on her and the patch.
Yeah, man. No, it's definitely going to be. I imagine. I mean, I already saw some people that are posting on Gen Chat, and I think I saw a few people asking Katsuya, "Hey, can I get a partial refund for this massive nerf on this hero that I already invested?" It wasn't a lot. I think I maybe saw less than a handful of posts about it, but I just thought it was interesting. So, okay. No, thanks for that. Alrighty. Let's go to, if we can, let's talk about maybe some of the Facebook visuals now. So, this was interesting because for me, I think my favorite part about this is the map. I know we did touch a little bit on already for the Gold Crest for new legendary artifact. That's what is it? Marksman PvP control, and but again, obviously we got a nice kind of sneak peek, if you will, at the map, along with, which is interesting because now, and again, I'm sure we probably want to touch a little bit on war pets because that, again, I have my own thoughts on that, which is not as positive, I think, as maybe some people would think. But obviously, there's quite a bit there. So, like I said, we have some gameplay information on what the battlegrounds is going to be like. We have a view on the map. We have some information on the Celestial battlegrounds as well, a little event calendar sneak peek, and some war pets. So why don't we talk about our thoughts around the AVA gameplay, right, for Roots of War on the 30 vs 30 Alliance? Again, I'll start with you, Sneak, too, here. Why don't you touch on thoughts on the gameplay, thoughts on the map? We'll kind of just go in order there, because we did get a little bit of information, not too much as far as kind of knowing the particulars, but you go ahead, take it away. I really want to hear what you think here.
Yeah, so when it comes to the, obviously, Alliance mode, this is something we've been waiting for, because obviously we can imagine playing Rise of Kingdoms, this isn't like an inevitable, as Thanos says, you know, this is gonna happen, right? So it was only a matter of time. The thing with it is I'm obviously happy, but in the Facebook images as well, I feel like they give you quite a lot of kind of like information, but it's kind of like packed in secretly. So it's kind of like if you just read it at first glance, you kind of think, oh, it is what it is. But the fact that it's an Alliance versus Alliance event is really cool, because the fact that now they should hopefully be able to like match someone like myself in server 2 against the server 32 alliance, and if those two alliances can fight in an AVA, and it's a very even fight so far with the 30 members you can see in there, it allows the devs as well to kind of like data mine, you know, the damage and the actual power of that kingdom. So hopefully they can take the information from all these Alliance versus Alliance events and actually make the server versus server matchmaking better, because obviously, if you're able to make the server versus server system better, because obviously there's a lot of complaints about it, obviously it's going to improve the positivity of the game, and the fact that the Alliance versus Alliance system's there to run alongside it, I think it's very important for them to land it. It's cool as well, obviously, when you look at the Facebook image post, they've got a little bit of information on it, on obviously the general strategy. It reads pretty much the exact same as how Ark of Osiris would run. So you have your resource points you'd gather. You also have some extra buildings on the outsides as well, the more inner circle, which are probably worth more points. And then in the very center will be eventually that Lifestone. So it's a really cool concept. Obviously, we're going to talk about the map itself. I think on its own, because I think the map itself is worthy of just, you know, talking by itself, because it is actually really good to see the map at a first glance on this infographic leak, if you want to call it, a sneak peek preview for the game mode. So I'm excited, as you can tell. Like, I'm hoping it's gonna be really good. I'm interested in the one thing I am interested in seeing is when they were talking about in the game mode, and this is more on the patch 1.017 section in the like more in-depth detailing, but they mentioned some stuff to do with artifacts, right? So I wonder if in this Alliance vs Alliance mode, do artifacts behave differently, right? Do they maybe have a lower cooldown, or do certain artifacts work differently? So as we know that the dream team always wants to happen, the Staff of Prophet Blink. We want to see that 15-man orbital drop squad appear from the left flank into the center from this mage crew. We want to be able to see that, but if the Staff of Prophet's got nearly like a 20-minute cooldown, obviously they're not going to be using this in Ark of Osiris or Roots of the War, should we say. So I wonder if the artifacts are going to get tweaked for the game mode to allow them to be a bit more viable for across the whole board, which would be really interesting to see. So that's like my thoughts on the general gameplay and stuff that they've said so far. Obviously, I'll let you tell me your thoughts on all that, and then afterwards, if you want, I can bring up the map and we can talk about the map as well then.
Yeah, man. So I have a few things here that I want to. Oops, hang on. I totally thought I put something else here. I just want to share it in the chat real quick, just so people can kind of keep along, because I don't know if I am sharing it on the other end, but I just posted it in our COD pod chat in case anyone wants to take a look. So again, I'm sure probably everyone here has already seen it, but what I will say is on the gameplay, and I took a note down too as well, because I want to mention something here once we do get to the map. But what I will say is that for me, I think the gameplay itself, the biggest question mark that I really have right now is hoping that the way they implement the power rankings, and I talked about this in my video as well, is I hope that they're either going to do something where they hard lock the players in, so that way they can't move out of the alliance, even if it's just over a 24-hour or 48 period, because Infinity Kingdom did something like this. Or if maybe they go the rock approach, where they say, okay, well, we're going to lock in your registered primary or your main players, right? And then we'll only give you a limited number of subs. And the reason I say that is because I wouldn't want it to be something where they look at the power of the main lineup, and they say, well, we're going to tank like 5 or 10 spots, and then we'll just bring in the stronger subs, right? As a way to try and get more favorable matchups. So I'm just hoping that there's going to be some way they do it, because ideally, the best way to do it would be to say, well, you're just going to run your main lineup and not have any subs. But the challenge is that sometimes you need subs, right? Because you don't know if everyone's going to be able to make it to the matches, right? Yeah. At the times and days that you set. So it is needed, but I hope that they keep the amount of subs low. I hope it's like 5 or something like that. I mean, maybe 10, but I think 5 to me, just because and again, maybe they'll just say, well, we'll take the total power of all the registered, whether it's subs or whether it's reserves, registers for mains and reserves in there. Or they'll just say, well, look, we're just going to lock in, because I don't know. It's just, again, I hope they figure that part out. That's really where I'm probably most concerned. I just don't want it to be something where the integrity, because this could be something that's really fun, right? It could be something really enjoyable for the community because of the way that COD's game mechanics, with its range play, with its artifact for its active skills, with being able to have the flying units. Like, I really think this could be bigger than what Ark of Osiris is in Rock, just because of COD's current capabilities versus Rock's current capabilities. So for me, I just think the most important thing is just trying to keep the integrity of the matchups as equal, I guess I'll just say, as possible. So for me, that's just the biggest thing.
Yeah, definitely, I agree with you. It's going to be the one thing, right? Again, like, and that takes in to what I was saying, right? To be able to hopefully get really good Alliance versus Alliance matchmaking, and hopefully they can take that system and actually apply it to the server versus server system, so you can get actually good matchmaking on both sides, right? Which is going to be fair and hopefully tangible for really good PvP. Because the thing is, that's what I think this game has, right? It arguably has the best PvP out of any game at the moment, and that's the major selling point. A lot of people probably don't really understand. Like, it is so popular at the moment because of how fun PvP is. Like, all the content creators will tell you the same thing. Like, the PvP in this game is honestly unmatched, right? Obviously, if you prefer the rally garrison style, then obviously Rock will most likely be your style of game. But if you're actually looking for like a true RTS style, this is already ticking every box that you want as a mobile gamer, you know, and it's in the beginning stages. It's not even in any, you know, refined version that you might have seen rocking 3 years down the line, because that's what happened with Rock. Rock was not a good game. It was, a lot of people will tell you it was a terrible game when it first started, and it took a load of effort from the devs to fine tweak it and get that open field combat system that's in right now, as well as the events and everything that, you know, Rise of Kingdoms is today, right? And they need to do the same thing, but this is a brand new studio. You know, they're not the same guys that have done Rock, even though they're part of obviously the same umbrella. So I'm interested to see if they are going to get that matchmaking spot on, because if they make that matchmaking spot on, everyone knows it's going to be a really popular game to play. So it's hopefully they do it. Hopefully.
No, for sure, man. I'm with you 100%. All right, let's transition to the map as maybe one of the final points that we cover for today. But touching on the map, again, I'll let you go first because I'm ecstatic. I'm absolutely over the moon with the map, and that for me, I think, was probably the best Stake Peak reveal that they gave on the Facebook, in my opinion. So, starting with you, Stake, what do you love about the map? Anything that you're kind of iffy on? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so initially when you look at the map, I love it on the sole purpose. It does give me remnants of really old school Total War and Warhammer vibes. Because if you ever played in those PC games like Warhammer Dark Crusade and Soulstorm and stuff like that, there's some signature maps on those game modes that were the most popular out of every map. And this honestly has that same layout. And the way it works is you have your center bases, as you can see on the top and left. But in order to exit that area, you're technically moving away from the center. So you move away from the center and you enter the outer ring of the map. And then you have to fight your way to the center to get what you want. And then you need to then obviously retrieve that live stone from the center, then go back and fight your way all the way to the outside and back into your own zone. So it is a really cool setup on the map design. You can see as well a lot of things that I think you would honestly laugh at when I say it, but it's got a very traditional like Call of Duty setup, right? It has 3 lanes. If you look at it, it has 3 straight up lanes to play. And it has 3 different levels, which is again a very, like, I would say Call of Duty-esque battlefield thing. So you can see, hopefully, with the map, which obviously we only get to see the image right now, that's obviously on screen for everyone, as well as the participants in the podcast stage room. The only thing that I'm hoping that you can do is, like, when you're looking at certain things on the map, like, can I use my flying units to go across the gaps, right? And can I use them to go across certain areas? As certain lines, like for example, where the orange flag is, you can see it's pretty much directly across from the live stone. Like, can a flying unit go through that, or is that going to be a blocked land? Like, there's a lot of little things that you want to kind of see the boundaries, right, of the map, so you can get a more sense and understanding on what can happen. Because again, when you look at it, there's just so much. When you first glance at it, it looks like a normal map, but the more and more you look into it, you can actually see, like, you know, on the top right of the map where the highest ground is, right? You drop down any of those 2 ramps and enter not the tree resource where the orange flag is, but where that diamond, you know, fort is, if you want to call it. If you're a cavalry unit, can you blink from that high ground onto that flag, you know? And that means...
It almost looks like a bishop piece.
Like a chess piece. Like a little chess piece, right? So can you, blink from that high ground to that low ground, which would be a very For calves with the Storm Blink and the Woman of Halo artifacts. And obviously you can see all the bridges where everything has to connect, which is good. So I am really curious, as you can tell, on how this is going to interact and how the boundaries between the higher grounds and elevations on the map allow flying units to thrive as well as the cavalry units, because obviously the mage, range, and infantry have got a pretty easy plan, right? You just kind of follow the motorway plan on the screen. You don't get any luxuries here, but the cavs and flying units do, and I hope they give them the actual ability to flank and stuff like we hope and imagine them to do. So very excited, as you can tell.
Yeah, man, I was just looking at some StarCraft 2 maps because we were talking about this before, and for me, I think it does. I mean, it's to me, it very much looks as though it just looks like a forested, bunch of looks like an Amazon rainforest version of like a StarCraft 2 map to me. And I was looking at one, and there's one called Ancient Cistern LE. That's a 1v1 map. It kind of looks a little similar to that. There are some differences on it, but I think that's something that almost comes to mind when I was looking at them for something that's comparable. But you were mentioning the 3 lanes, and I think this is very kind of League of Legends-esque as well.
Yeah.
In addition, with the 3 lanes that they have there, I love the height. I love the elevations, and then the kind of lower levels that you get as well. To me, it almost feels as though there's 2 high points, right? You have the corner high points at each one. It's just the one, I think, top right looks a little more clearly visible, but I believe the one bottom left is also technically another high point, just because of what I would assume is just the symmetrical nature of the map. Now, there are some, like if you really look close, you could see that there are some clear differences with like some of the rock formations that you see on like the bottom left, right? You can kind of see like there's 2 little rocks over there. If you go directly west of the orange flag or southwest of the blue flag, and then if you go northeast on the opposite side, you see that there's like a bigger rock formation, and there's one that's a little bit more like if you're going northeast or top right of the orange flag, then there's like a separate. So you can see some of those, and if you look at like the home kingdoms or the home starting areas, you could see that on orange there's not as many like additional things that are going on, like for example, you look at blue, you see some rocks, you see some other like hill regions, or the way that like the ramp curves, it looks like you have to go back and then to the right, where the one in the orange flag looks as though it's more flat land, and you're just kind of going across what seems to be just kind of an open connecting bridge, but isn't really, it's just kind of made of the land itself. But I think for me, honestly, like you said, I think the fact that there's multiple choke points on the map that really get me excited. I'm hoping and I assume that flying can go over some of those rivers and some of those veins that we're seeing on the map, and yeah. You mentioned Blink, right? I almost feel like something like a stealth cloak artifact could be super fun on this as well, because we got alluded to that there's going to be like some light fog of war, right, where not everything's going to be available. So imagine you have a group that is just going around with stealth, and they're either looking for favorable matchups, or maybe they're doing it to sneak behind to start capping artifacts, or maybe you have like a group of like 10 or 15 legions, and all of them are cloaked, but one of them goes out and they start capping a structure, but that unit is baiting them, right? So then you have like 3 or 4 of the enemies that try to send their unit to go and counter. But exactly, right? And you're basically, I mean, to me, don't get me wrong, there just seems to be so much creativity that could play out, in addition to what I hope they'll allow for some artifacts, or all the artifacts. Now, it will be curious if they do some certain caps on things, right? If they say like, oh, well, you can't be above a certain level or something, or if it's just whatever level you have, you can bring in. But I just think the artifact usage, to me, in addition to what comps we might see running, will be very interesting. Like you made that point of, before we were talking like Lord of the Rings or something about, not today, but I think this was before, like who's to say you don't have like a Rohan? Yeah. It's like Cav squad that's just running around. Or maybe you have like a flying squad that's just running around nonstop. I mean, I saw that when I did the SSS 1-10 coverage of their big war. Both sides, it was ANCS and oh god, I think it was DX on the other side. They had like 15 or 20 flying units. Both of them had like a flying battalion.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I'm with you. I'm very excited about the map. One thing I'm going to note on, and you might like this, because I'm going to ask them. I'm going to ask the devs about this, or our team that we can reach out to. I'm going to ask them and see if there's a way, because this is going to be the next thing, right? Because this would be something I'd love to do, obviously, with anyone else. I know I've talked to you about doing this with me as well, but I'd love if they work in an ability to spectate and watch matches, right? Where you can have as many people viewing matches in real time as possible. Because in Rock, I don't know if they do have a way to view matches. Like you can watch them. I know you can bet on matches. That would be dope too as well. I wish they would add something where you can bet on matches. That'd be cool. I wish they had. I'd love for them to have like a real time leaderboard. Kind of like if you're playing out, like a Premier League season or something, right? You can see kind of where the rankings are. So that would be dope. But the big thing for me is I would love for them to add a special role for matches that would be a commentator role.
Yeah.
To where you can go in and you can commentate. It doesn't mean that maybe, and again, it can be either real time where you go in and you can commentate matches and people that are viewing can listen to it, or just a way to go in and like free move around, right? Where I could go in, record the matches, or you could go and record the matches, right? And you can commentate, or we can dual commentate. So that's something that I would love for them to add in, because if this mode turns out to be as good as the potential is, that I'm sure we both hope and believe it can be, having ways that we can promote it are really important, right? So at least as creators, or for people that want to try, their hand at commentating, to me, that would be dope. So I already asked them about this, so I'm just waiting to hear back. Because I'm curious, like, to me, those just seem like good things, like a way for people to spectate, some way that the player base can engage, like a betting system or something, and then a way that people can commentate over matches. Now, in real time would be dope. So, like, if players just all across the game wanted to come in and spectate, they could do that, right? Or they could go onto someone's live stream who's doing it, right, as well. But you're just able to go into the match in this type of commentator role, so to speak, where maybe it gives you like some tools, maybe some overlay tools that you can use, right, as an example. Like not anything that will affect the viewer, like the average person who's just spectating, but it would just be for you, and only you can see the things that you're doing on it. So it would be more like if you're live streaming it or doing a record. What do you think about that? Like, those three things to me seem really big. I'd love to see those added.
Yeah, definitely, because like you say, like I'm a very known in my community as a big commentator, right? Like I do when I live stream anyway, I do PvP commentary very heavily. I cover as much as I can. I do breakdowns of PvP and stuff, and like it makes sense. Like, and I'm surprised Rock doesn't have it. So if they're able to bring this in here, it's going to be a game changer again, because you're going to be able to allow. If it were me, I'd only allow literally like 2 free tops. 2 free slots, and it's a spectating slot. You can go in, and if you're a spectator, you get obviously the controls where it's like full fog of war tick, only blue team fog of war tick, only orange fog of war tick. So you can show on a live stream, like you say, or a video, then the differences in what teams are actually seeing, right? Because you can be like, look, this is what full fog of war looks like when you take it off, so you can see how everyone's walking and stuff. You can see all the action. But if we just put on the fog of war for Team Blue now, you can see what they're seeing, and they're gonna be potentially walking into a flank, and they don't even know because of that fog of war, and you're able to obviously convey that information as a commentator, right? So like I hope they do this, because like for me it'd be amazing. And the fact that you can, it could be a time slot, because obviously Arc or Roots of War is going to be a most likely timed event on a weekly odd basis, so that then every week a streamer or 2 streamers are going to be able to obviously do the live stream for it, right, and obviously showcase all the fighting, all the commentary that you want. And like I'm surprised that they're not having it in. It's not having that in. So definitely 100% by me. It was one thing I was gonna say, like, they should be adding a spectating system. If they don't have any sort of spectating system, they're going to be messing up majorly in my eyes on this game. So we'll soon see what they're going to do for the future anyway.
Yeah. No, man, listen, there's a lot. There's a lot. So and you made what I thought was a really good point earlier on the fact that the game is just still so young. There's still so much that we do not know. One, either the direction they're going to go in, or two, if there's things they've already announced that we just haven't seen yet. Some examples are a season 2 map, like a true season 2 map, right? We know it's coming, but there's just no hard ETA on it. And I'm sure there's a few other things that they've alluded to here and there, but I think for me that's what you really kind of hampered down on with what still is essentially the unknown. And in most cases, or at least I would hope, is kind of the majority view, is that it's a good unknown, right? It's like something to look forward to. So, all right. I guess with that in mind, I mean, we're basically at 45 minutes. Anything that maybe is just on your mind you want to end with before we, kind of officially close things out? Whether it's, maybe anything kind of going on in game in some of the kingdoms, any good PvP you've watched, or just anything. Maybe if there's even anything that you have.
I'm actually happy, obviously, with the just adding to do with the patch notes, and we didn't really mention it. Obviously, they're adding that new Celestial Battlegrounds event, so it's cool. They're adding more events, which is good. A lot of people complain, but there's been a lot less events that we've had to work with, and we've made it work, and we've played the game and enjoyed it. So you can see that they are listening, and they are bringing out events, and they are bringing out new gameplay and stuff like that. And I am interested to see where the direction of the game goes. One thing that's playing on my mind mainly is the two heroes. And obviously we've got Freygar Syndrome, but we still got...
You mean the next two?
Yeah, we still got another two heroes to go by, right? So we are in the air, and this is one thing that's just, I think, a hot topic that I get asked all the time on my live streams, which is, what do you expect it's going to be, and what do you reckon the next two heroes are going to be? And I've given, obviously, two different answers, which I reckon it's going to be one or the other. It could be anything, right? They could surprise me and prove me wrong, but when I look at the game, I always see everything in in a fairness way, almost, right? So when you look at all the legendary heroes in the game, infantry are sound right now. Infantry have enough legendary commanders that they're shitting out, infantry commanders left, right, and center from the get-go. They're just appearing, right? And then obviously the cavalry only originally had Emery's, but then they brought out Bakshi to fix that, right? So that's a really good thing. And now you have two marksman heroes, which is Nico and Kanara. And then for some reason, in the beginning of the season, you're getting access to another two marksman units. So you're like, okay then, but when we look at now mages, if you... And this is a weird, maybe a hot take, but I disregard Lilia. I don't look at Lilia as a hero in the game. Because, you can't get Lilia in any other means apart from buying her, right? And if you're a free-to-play player, you're never going to have access to this hero. So she's never going to be on your radar. You're never going to care about it. So when you take that out, the only hero you have is Valen. Or Valine, You've only got Valen on his own now. You can't count Fear, because Fear is an overall hero like Hosk, right? So she has a defined role being able to be mixed units, right? So I hope these two new heroes, one of them is a mage hero, or what I was hoping they do is actually bring out two mage heroes. I think that they should bring out two mage heroes to balance out the commander, if you want to call it, fields, because you've got one mage, you've got two cav, you've got three marksmen, you've got three infantry, right? So okay, bring two mages out now, so then the mages are up to par. You got the next season to come anyway with the brand new map. And if that's a brand new map, why not make it even more hype and then bring out the flying cavalry hero, which everyone's expecting to bring, you know, in that season? Because then everyone, if you look at then in that new season, you'd have 3 mage heroes because of the 2 unlocked in this season. You'd have a brand new flying cavalry hero, which would make 3 legendary cav heroes in total, 3 marksmen and 3 infantry. So then they've got the if you want to call it the layout perfect then. So then they could just say, okay, the next 2 commanders in this season, or 3 commanders, are going to be maybe overall garrison rally based, right? So they can iron everything out. So then in the future, which is really important about the game, because a lot of people always want stuff to happen now, but they're not considering how the future pathway could be. It allows the devs to then in every season go, okay, this season we're going to get 2 infantry marches, two cavalry marches, exactly like Rock does, and it allows you to then have an idea, okay, this season we've had infantry and archers, next season I'm going to be seeing mage and cavalry, you know. It gives you that option then, so you know what you're going to get, and then at the end you're going to get the overall rally heroes, and then it recycles again, right? So I hope it does that, and that's the reason I brought it up, because it is interesting, right? We've got 2 heroes, we don't know what they are. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you reckon the 2 new heroes might be, any assumptions, you know, get your tinfoil hat out and go for it. But it's one of them hot questions that I always get asked, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as well, what you reckon the potential next 2 heroes could be, right? So you could have any combination you want if you were going to fix the game, or how you assume the devs to do it. I'd love just to hear your thoughts, that's all.
You know, I think what I would say is that as long as they're coming out with legendary heroes in a way where it balances each type out, right? So they're not just going to come out with, 2 more infantries right away, and then now all of a sudden infantry has 5, or you're going to come out with, I feel like it should, like, each of them should hit 5 right at the same time for each of the types, because you have to almost think about it where once you have one type that hits 5, that is going to be the moment, potentially, where you could see players running running true roles on the battlefield. Where now it's, oh cool, well I'm just going to run 5 infantry, I'll just run 5 cav or 5 marksmen or 5 range, etc. And so, for me, I would just love for the pace to be that, regardless of who comes out next. If they're going to do it in that type of way, then I hope that they do it where it's like, okay, we're going to make sure that there's, 4 cav, flying, infantry, marksman, mage, and then we'll go up to 5, right, with each. And then after that, we'll all go up to 6, 7, 8, 9. Because basically 5 would be the earliest we could start seeing a potential role-based comp where you're running nothing but those as primaries. Potentially secondaries, but you could be running them as primaries mainly, and then having some type of flex pick or overall picks, right, that are attached. And then once you get up to like 6, 7, 8, truly 10, right, of the same role, then you're really going to start seeing what I think is going to be the evolution, which is really where I view the true potential of COD, is once you get to a point where you can have essentially 10 legendaries of a specific role, then you're able to essentially run 5 legions of full role-specific heroes that are of that type, and ideally legendaries, right, obviously, in the kind of purest or the endgame, ultimate endgame sense of it all.
Yeah, definitely.
That, to me, I think, is when we're really going to start seeing more role-specific, and I think the strategies and the tactics will get a lot better from that point as well, because it'll just be so much more easier to play a specific role, factor in micromanaging your units and kiting and all this stuff that I think will just become a little bit more effortless than it is now, because usually what you're seeing now on the battlefield is no one's running pure of just taking like one march. They're typically running kind of a mixture of different types of marches. So for me, that's it. As long as they come out with them one by one, kind of in order where everyone gets 4, everyone gets 5, and then eventually it gets to that point, that's really all that I would like to see, just so it's fair to me across the board. And that's really all I'd say.
No worries. Fair enough, fair enough. Well, everyone heard it there. You know, tinfoil hats are off. You know, I was checking the chat in case anyone were putting something in there what they thought, you know, potentially was it. So, but yeah, no, that's fair enough, fair enough. I'm glad to hear what your thoughts were on it.
Alrighty. Well, with that in mind, we're almost at 55 minutes. Let's go ahead and start closing this out, my good friend. With that, let's go ahead and, again, first and foremost, as always, right, thanks everyone for tuning in. We do appreciate the time. You know, again, these typically are really meant for us to record internally, and then eventually we upload right as on our own channels for our kind of COD Pod episode instances or versions, if you will. But we do like kind of mixing it up and being able to present a live show format, so that way if people want to get a sneak peek on what those are going to be first, right, that's something that we got for you. So again, let's go ahead and start working on our closings here. Sneaky, we'll start with you. Tell the people again what you have going on, where they can find you.
Yeah, and if you don't know already, check me out on YouTube. I'm mainly only on YouTube doing live streams and Call of Dragons content. You can check me out at MrSneakyy. Obviously, just search it in, or if you want to type in youtube.com/@MrSneakyy, it's even easier to access my content. We cover everything realistically to do with Call of Dragons, right? We do all your hero guides, behemoth guides, as well as PvP commentary, and anything in between that's Call of Dragons related. So it's been a blast, like always, Mr. Boss Nasty. So I'll pass it on to you and let you close down the show.
All right. Thank you, Mike. I will say that, again, man, thanks as always. It's always a pleasure being able to have some nice and good quality conversations with you. And again, man, you guys can just check me out at Boss Nasty on YouTube. And again, right, be sure to, again, if you're looking to kind of keep up, one of the things I always like to mention at the end is that, right, we'll do kind of these impromptu COD Pod shows on whether it's my channel or Sneaky's. I know we've mainly kind of been doing it here, but again, be sure to join the Discords for ours, and then that way, if you ever want to get notified for when these go live and just kind of catch them in those types of impromptu ways that we essentially come out and do them in, and you'll be able to take a look at them there. Lastly, got to give a shout out to our buddy Raven. I know we've seen a few times for the shows hanging out, so we always appreciate and glad that you found this episode fulfilling, hopefully in some way, shape, or form. And yeah, that's pretty much going to be it. So man, as always, for myself and Sneakyy, we appreciate the time. Thanks you guys for listening, and until our next episode, we will catch you later.